Um, yes, sir. A very good evening to you. This will be one of the first interviews for Shramko Naman, which we have started under the Center for New Economic Studies under the Politica Group, which is a very intrigued focus into how migrant workers and the migrant crisis has started during the lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is taking into consideration the huge movement throughout the country from one state to the other. So we'll be looking into that and answering a few questions and taking in your wonderful insights. So I'll first be introducing the speaker, Mr. Abhijit Mukhopadhyay is a senior fellow with ORF's Economy and Growth Program. His main areas of research include macroeconomics and public policy, with core research areas in monetary economics and political economy of finance. He has extensive experience in economy and policy research academia, business school teaching, and academic administration. He has a keen interest in micro and macro business environments, sectoral industries, and issues relating to public finance, agriculture, and development economics. So, sir, this makes us very your answering of questions very opportune for this situation because you have been dwelling into development economics and could give wonderful insights on how the economy is performing after so many days of lockdown and how these migrant workers are behaving, because I see these people with a long period of time have been a little frustrated with not just policies from the central and the state governments, but how their economic and financial conditions are performing at the present stage. So I'll hereby hand over the floor to you, and I think you are able to see the questions very clearly, so you can start off with that, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. So, do you want me to answer or to react to the questions that you have already asked, or
So
do
completely
you want to
upon you,
ask me
sir.
the questions and then I'll react?
Yes, sir. Then we'll follow that. One of the first questions is, what is your general sense of India's migrant crisis today? How much prominent was this in the past? Because you were talking about how this migrant crisis used to be there, but this has come to in the forefront, and people have started recognizing it and understanding it right now during the pandemic.
Okay, all right. But then, don't you need the video, or do you want to record the entire thing with the slide?
So I'll be recording the whole thing. So the recording has already
No,
started,
no.
sir.
I'm saying that do you want my face, or do you want the slide to be there? That is what I'm
Uh,
asking.
like I think I'll then move to like the video itself.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
this
That's
will
what
be
I'm
this
trying.
will be better. Yeah. Sorry, sir. Sorry.
No. Anyway, your first question that you asked is that ultimately that what is the general sense, and is there any background to it? But then the first part is that contrary to the the discussion in the public domain, and also what I would call the uh, definitely it can be called some kind of an apathy, from the not only from the government, from the society in general. Because it's a huge tragedy and it's a huge fiasco to say the least. Why I'm saying so? Because in 2019, uh, World Bank data, if we look at, then of course, the the size of Indian workforce is close to, you can say, 500 million or 50 crore, close to 50 crore. And of course, because of that, you have, can you still hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's not disconnected, I believe.
No, 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 sir. It's completely fine.
Okay. So then the point is that ultimately, we have close to 50 crore workers in our country, out of which there are different kind of estimates. There is no solid kind of estimates because nobody has done it very seriously. The only estimate that can those are generally believable are the government estimates. But government, in fact, this year, in fact, there was a proposal, there was a bill to provide some kind of health insurance cover or something. If I am not absolutely wrong, if I can remember it correctly. So then there was in January, I think there was one bill which was, there was discussion about tabling that bill into the parliament. Finally, in my belief, it didn't happen because after that, immediately the pandemic started. And the entire discourse got derailed from um, that sense. But then, there, in fact, during that discussion, also, generally, it was said that 90% of this workforce is informal. It is in informal sector, which mainly means that even then, even earlier, we had, even a couple of years back, I can remember there was some study which actually put in uh, somewhere around 81%, let's say 80%. So it varies from 75, 80% to somewhere around 90%. So even if I take, let's say, somewhere around, something like 80% of it, let's say, 80% of it, and then that means the number of informal workers, the migrant workers that which we are talking about, are generally speaking, they are they will be somewhere around 40 crores. If we take it at 80%. So obviously it's and then most of them are affected by this. If most of them are affected by this, then obviously, we are talking about uh, somewhere around 40, even, my sense is that even if we talk about 30 crores, it's a huge number. Even if we say that, okay, fine, not all of them got affected by this pandemic, not all of them got affected by lockdown, not all of them lost their job, fine. But then at least three-fourths of them, so that actually takes it to somewhere around 30 crore or 300 million, which is a huge population. So if that kind of a population is there, they are affected. So it's a big human tragedy. There is no doubt about it. Second part of the question, what even where one can always ask that why is it happening now or something like. So then there, in fact, the reality is that definitely it is not something which is happening right now, because structurally it was there. Structurally, this informality, economy is there. Number one. Number two is that in the name of cheap labor advantage, or what we call the labor cost advantage in a very sophisticated economic language. Basically, we talk about these things. So when we talk that India has a comparative labor advantage, or labor cost advantage in so and so industry or in so and so manufacturing sector, what actually we mean is that exactly these people. So if these people are even earlier there, so make no mistake about it, that ultimately they were there. And why their plight is so bad at this point of time? Why so many of them are stranded here and there and not getting, they don't have any money, they don't have any job, they don't have any food. Surviving has become a very big problem. And As a result, after a certain point of time, a huge proportion of them are simply walking down because there was no train. Now it has opened, and then some. But even then, the trains and the transports are not adequate. And then somebody who is working in somewhere in, let's say, Bengal, somewhere in Karnataka, and wants to get back in Bihar or UP, so they cannot do it just like that. So obviously, not that many, not enough number of trains are there. What I'm trying to say is that not enough number of trains, not enough number of transports are available so that they can be shifted very easily. Here the point comes in that before the lockdown, in fact, there should have been some amount of what I would say that the buffer period should have been, and within that period, let's say 10 days or maybe even 15 days, instead of doing it immediately after that Janta curfew thing, then government should have thought about it maybe even 10 days back and then announce that, you know, please go back home. In the next 15 days, we are providing lots of special trains, we are providing lots of special buses. Just go home. Don't get stranded anywhere. And then if this lockdown has happened, then the situation would have been entirely different. The entire tragedy is due to mismanagement. So the point is that then one can always ask, and which is related to, one can always ask the question that then why was it not done? So I would rather say that probably it is a matter of miscalculation, and additionally I would also add that this section of population, this section of people are not very seriously, their survival, their existence, their well-being are not well thought about, not only within the government circle or within the industrial circle, but also generally in the society. So, you know what I'm trying to say. That, that overall societal perception of the low-level worker who are actually making somewhere between 5,000, 15,000 per month and just barely managing with their families, then uh, this is the general perception of the society. So it was there. Now it sounds very heartless, maybe. But generally, the upper parts, the upper sections of the society thought these people to be expendable, and that is precisely is getting, that is being shown there in a very, I think, in a vivid manner over so many photographs, over so many reports. Some of the journalists, not many, but of course, the media is something on which actually one can talk for hours and maybe even for days. But then I'm not getting into media, but not all media, but some people within the media, they have very diligently covered this entire crisis. So obviously, it is not something which was not there. It was there. Definitely, it was there. And now, during this once in a lifetime crisis, it is coming out like this. So, so that is how the entire tragedy is unfolding. Even now, I would say even now. That is the first part. That is the answer to the first question. So I'll stop there. But then the second question that you want to ask.
Yes, sir. So the second question is, what kind of impact is the Indian economy undergoing with extensive amounts of internal migration across the country? Like this is one of the most important questions. Even everyone wants to ask about the Indian economy and how is it behaving with the internal migration.
This migration, because here, in fact, you see that the point is that there will be huge impact in my as I said, that if we assume that 90% of the workforce, or forget about 90%, let's stick with 80%. 80% of the workforce are informal. Then obviously you can understand that 80% of the entire 80% of the the all kinds of economic activities and industries and other things which are there, they are run by all these informal people. So obviously, in a very commonsensical way, the impact will be very huge. But even there, if I go a little bit of into a little bit of data here and there, yes, in fact, if we look at the national account statistics data, which I believe is a gross underestimation of informality in our economy, that also takes somewhere around 52.4% informal sector, the incidence of informal sector in our economy, which means formal sector is somewhere around 40, 47, 46, 47%. But here, in fact, why I am, mentioning the national account statistics is that related to that, if you look at the other government data of NSSO and other kind of employment service, there, in fact, if you look at the worker population ratio means the basically, as the name suggests, that the number of workers divided by number of people in the country. The number of workers by population, which broadly is somewhere around, under usual status, which is principal status plus subsidiary status, that that ratio is 34.7%, and the current weekly status, it is somewhere around 32.7%. Let's say somewhere around 33%, which means one third of the people of the population, one third of the population work, and two-thirds of the population definitely, for obvious reasons, will be dependent upon this one third of work. So here, what I am trying to say is that if in the answer to the earlier question, what I was trying to quote the figure of 30 crore. If 30 crore people are affected, then definitely the 30 multiplied by 2, which means 64 people will be dependent on this population. You're getting what I am trying to say. Are you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So then somewhere around 30 crore workers, getting into a survival crisis because of job loss, wage loss, because of no food available, no shelter available, walking down, some of them dying. All those things actually on paper means that another 60 crore people are maybe they are with them, maybe they are not with them. Maybe one migrant worker family is there in the village. But then the point is that this fellow, when he sends money at the end of each month, let's say some 3,000 or 4,000 rupees, then that family actually survives in the mill. That is how this entire migrant workers economy actually works. If that is how it works, then here we are talking about 30 crore plus 60 crore, which means somewhere around 90 crore of people in a 135 crore. Even if I assume that 135 crore is our total population, which means that our two-thirds of our population are in any case very badly affected by this pandemic and this time. So you can jolly well understand that the kind of impact it will have, because as an economic student, you must be knowing also. You are definitely aware of the concept of what we call the marginal propensity to consume. It is these people who actually earn much less. I am talking about the people who, as earlier. I am talking about the people who actually earn somewhere around 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 to, let's say, 10, 15,000, even 20,000. Running a family of, let's say, 5 or 7 people with 20,000 rupees in a forget about metro cities, even in a tier 2 or tier 3 city is a really tough job in today's time. They may not be by official definition poor, but if you cut off their salaries for consecutively 2 or 3 months, they'll be in serious trouble. Some of them may even die. So that is what is happening today. So here, in fact, if two-thirds of your population is adversely affected, here also one thing needs to be taken into account, which is that the other one-third, we can't say that they are not affected at all, because now we are seeing in sectors like media, in sectors like IT, there are in aviation industry, there are news of laying off coming every day from somewhere or the other. So obviously, the rest one-third is also adversely affected. There is no doubt about it. So let us not compare one tragedy with another. But then definitely one can statistically, if one has to say that these guys are in immediate danger. These two-thirds of your population are in immediate danger. That needs to be clearly understood. So that is the impact we are having. And if we are trying to gauge the economic impact, of course, I don't have the wherewithal to make some projections or something. But just a few days back, I think CRISIL came out with some projections. And CRISIL is saying that the first quarter of this fiscal, that is 2020-2021, we'll see a staggering 35% contraction in demand. You can imagine that what is going to happen. So that's how I would say the extent of this tragedy is. So that more or less covers the in my belief. If you don't have any other any other counter questions, but then you can go to your third question.
Yes. So in one of the questions you mentioned about it is mismanagement which has led to this crisis. So on that question, on that very point, would you say that India has grossly underestimated its migrant laborers considering the present approach expressed by state as well as central governments in India?
It's very difficult to say because I don't know what actually happened. On the outset, it looks like what he was suggesting, that some kind of a underestimation, some kind of an underestimation of the problem. But that is what governance is all about. You can't underestimate. You can overestimate a problem and then err on the higher side. That is still better, rather than doing this, that you underestimate and then your measures are absolutely inadequate to deal with a really grave problem. So I would say that it is also related to the first question that you asked. That the second part of your first question, that is it something which is just happening now, or it was already there? I would say that structurally it was always there, because there is no point in saying that everything was fine before January, and then suddenly the pandemic started in the by the end of February, the bad news started coming in, and then March you have multiple number of cases, and then you lock down, and then that is how these things are happening. But I would not, I would not say so, because the point is that ultimately the kind of economic model that we are following, not only in India, because the kind of economic model in most of the world now follow, has got some problem, because that one needs to understand. Because here, in fact, when we talk about capital, generally, I'm very sorry to say that, but then the point is that people are more bothered about capital, which is after all money and inanimate object, than labor, and labor of this kind. cheap labor. They put both capital and labor in the same bracket and treat labor as just another, just another factor of production, as we see in the economics textbooks. But the point is that these laborers are also human beings. That that labor can always labor can feel pain, labor can die, labor will have their own kinds of plights, labor may even protest also. That one needs to understand, because your money, either you make money or you lose money or you keep on making money. These are the three, making money at an average level. So with money, and money does not have any life, but labor has a life, because that is what one needs to understand. So in fact, the way, once again, maybe a little bit harsh uh, uh, example to draw here. But then the point is that just look at the way these migrant laborers, when they went back to their states, how are the treated? Because people have been sprayed, like with industrial sodium chlorate or whatever they call it. I really don't understand what is there. But then later, one of my friends actually told me that, ideally speaking, it should be calcium chlorate or something like that, calcium dichlorate or calcium chlorate. But they use sodium bichlorate or sodium chlorate or something like that, that kind of solution in water on the migrant laborers in mouth. Like, they were just crouching on the streets. They were held by police, and then police were just paying them just like that, and without any protection. So, and contrast to that, even in the month of March, before the lockdown, even also, it was 22nd March, people have come from all over the world to all kinds of flights. I haven't seen any such, that sodium hypochlorite or sodium chlorate mixture thrown upon, by some host, some water pipe hose or something like that at the airport. I have never seen. On the contrary, many of these people who came back from other countries, and some of those were very high infected countries. In the initial days, if you don't have a temperature, the major probability was that without any hindrance and without any barrier, you will reach your home and you will do whatever you can. So there is what we call there is some kind of a bias, some kind of a class bias in the society, which was there, as I'm saying again and again, that it was already there in the society, and in this tragedy, it is coming out completely. That is what, and same will go for the governmental policy approaches, because is what, because I don't want to sound philosophical, but then the point is that the fact of the matter is, government is run by people from the society itself. If the society has some kind of a malaise, you can't expect that malaise to uh, immediately vanish when some members of the society just go into the government and start running the government. That never happens. In fact, it gets magnified. It gets magnified. It gets focused on something else. That is what we are seeing. That is what is happening. Because, and not only that, the point I'm trying to make, that look at the number of state governments which have relaxed the labor laws, and essentially, there are a lot of, some of the provisions of the labor laws are really archaic. There is no doubt about it. And then labor laws, some parts of labor laws should be reformed. There is no doubt about it. But at this point of time, if you say, and then there are, I'll name the person. So, Narayan Murthy of what is the company? I think Wipro, no? Uh, no. He's not Wipro. Narayan Murthy is anyway. It doesn't matter. Narayan Murthy said that that people have to work. The workers basically have to work for 12 hours or something like that. But the point is that when you are making profits, have you ever talked about shortening the working hours of the labor? Because labor productivity was increasing all the way. In the last 10, 15 years, labor productivity has increased like anything. So who actually talked about, shortening the working hours of laborers at that point of time? Nobody. But now everybody is talking about that you have to work for 12 hours, you have to work, even if manufacturers are making the workers work for 8 hours or 9 hours. So, it will not be illegal. You will not have to pay them, overtime or something like that. So that's how, things are panning out. So these are all indications of how generally the society looks at the menial, semi-skilled, unskilled labor of your company. So if your society looks at that population like that, then obviously the government will also look at it like the pure reflection of our apathy and our this kind of things. What we can see all over the media and particularly in social media. So that will be all that I have to say on this. So do we go to the next one?
Yes, sir. So actually, you pointed out very well about the working hours and everything, because I have my relatives and other friends staying in places like Calcutta and all, and I was very shocked to listen that employees from this like the State Bank of India were asked to purposefully come to office and start working, even if it is not like alternate days, but at least start working on an everyday basis in certain hours. It was very astonishing for like a government institution like the State Bank has started almost like threatening its officials that please start coming, and we if you're not able to come, then we won't be giving you the complete salary of the month and all. So this was something which I even noticed, because working as and so Mr. Narayan Murthy is from Infosys, I think. You
Yeah,
missed
yeah,
out on
input.
that. He's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
from
yeah,
India.
I just
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I forgot. I unnecessarily I
So
was
hmm.
uh, making movement like Ajit Temji. Sorry for that. Yes, Infosys. Yes.
Yeah, in person. So, sir, I'll move to the last question, and this question is about like in India, gaps of people created by people leaving the country. Like just like you mentioned about the migrants who came in from the Gulf and other places, are filled up with internal migrants or replacement migrants. Now that during this pandemic, this process has reversed, how do you think things will unfold right now? Like people have come back from the Gulf and all these other countries. So how do you think the workers over here, will they go back, or what will happen? Because this was what I noticed during the 2008 crisis and other the oil crisis and all and everything, where there were, even after the crisis, people started moving back, or some people thought of staying back. So what do you think would be, according to you, the things would unfold?
Yeah, this question actually has two. When you are talking about people who are semi-skilled labor who were providing their labors, let's say, why in Gulf only? There are Canada, we know that people from Kerala, they go to Gulf. Not only Kerala, just from many other states all over India, but many from Kerala, a lot of people low end and medium end kind. But the same is true, for a big population of Punjab going to Canada and then working there. Actually, if people from Gulf are coming back, or people from some other places are coming back. There is a point, I am not denying it. The first part is coming from your from the very textbook lives, what we call that, the surplus agricultural labor will industrial sector, and that is how economic progresses or something like that. But as in your question itself, you yourself said that that was not enough. So that was in fact a lot of them, a lot of these surplus labor from agricultural sector actually had to go outside to find some other job, some other menial jobs, or semi-skilled kind of jobs in which they were doing something. Now they are coming back. That will be a problem. That is there. But then another problem is that a huge part of this population which are working outside, they are basically what we call white collar workers. They are in IT, and they are in all sorts of white collar jobs. There are doctors, there are corporate in various corporate roles and various corporate jobs. People are there, marketing, in sales, in all kinds of research, in finance. In Gulf, they are also working in North America. So that way, the first part, that news theory does not really work. Definitely not so that will be my the reaction to the first part. The second part, what if I could have understood, if I could understand it properly, then second part is the people living the for some work are largely different from the workers, the migrant workers we are talking about. Because that nobody has gone somewhere outside the country and making a very small amount of money, as small as 5,000 rupees or 4,000 rupees, and then surviving. They can't live there, and actually go outside for some amount of prosperity, whatever it is. The restaurant or the small dhaba or whatever. They were actually earning, and then that population is largely different from the migrant workers we are talking about. So that largely, in my opinion, largely that thing does not clash. Rather, the second part, coming back to the second part, what I was trying to say is that yes, this migration, the way you put up the question, the point, there is a very important point in the second part of that question. That when these people will go back to their villages or small cities or where they're from, I'm talking about the migrant workers. Will they find will they find some other jobs? Will they find some other means of surviving? Very unlikely, because if it was, those options were there, then they would have never left. Most, that is kind of I would say behavioral thing. I had and very bitter fights with my friends and some of the colleagues also, that people say that they just like that people will come from their home and they will as a ruthless construction worker. And as I was trying to say that, yeah, here also want to mention this in the first part also, that it is not like that within India these migrant workers are working mostly in a very, forget about white collar, working in, they are mainly working in sectors like construction. Construction actually, all those buildings, all those houses, infrastructure projects which are coming up, all are done these migrants. Overwhelming majority, 74%, somewhere around 74, almost nearly 75% of the workers in these projects are migrants. How do they stay there? they don't have any home. You can see, I have also come across, because I have to, over telephone and other then I came across two groups of people who are actually working, that in one group there were around 10, 12 people, in another group there were around 20 people, all young villages of North Bengal. They were just staying in the open, basically on the constructions, under some shade or something. And then they were not having any kind of money. They can, they don't have even utensils, or whether gas oven or any other, anything to cook, because they don't have those kind of. This is how, these majority of what, because they actually survive. The people in the Gulf, or people in Australia, people in North America, or people in Europe who are actually working there, overstretching. That is what. But anyway, coming back, once again, coming back to the second part is that if these people are going back to their roots, going back to their home, will they find enough? I don't think. Because, if at all, when people actually leave home, forget about the, upwardly mobile upper class, or upwardly mobile upper middle class, who are actually having some kind of an ambition or something. In terms of the lower middle, the lower, or the, even the poor section of the population, they don't want to go out of their home. Wherever they are born and brought up, nobody wants to get out of that place unnecessarily, taking a huge amount of risk, unless there is some expected gain, and that gain has to be very big. Suppose in my village, I am unable to get anything, more than 2,000 rupees per month, and I know somebody who is working in Delhi, or somebody who is working in Mumbai, or in somewhere in Ahmedabad, and a friend, or somebody known in village, who actually tells me that you come here, that you can make something like 8,000, 10,000 per month. Then I will, if you tell me that, you will be making somewhere around 3,000 or 3,500 in Delhi or Ahmedabad, I'll never go. Why should I go? Because in any case, I'm making 2,000, 2,500 sitting in my home. I will go when actually I see that there are manifold increase in my income, and then I think that, somehow I'll be able to manage my own survival over there, and then whatever rest I can save, I'll send it back to home, to my family, so that the family can survive, plus possibly with the hope that the family can, over a period of time, in 5, 7, 8, 10, 15 years, might even prosper. They will prosper. Means what? Prosper means, like, not in the in the upper middle class sense. Also, prosper means they hope to um, set up a small grocery shop in the village. That kind of prosperity that they look for. So, you know, so the fact of the matter is that if there were options available in back their home, these people wouldn't have gone along the length and breadth of the country, today here, tomorrow there, day after, and in another place, just for the sake of work, mostly in construction and things like what we call logistics, basically, transport, storage, and those kind of things are full of, these kind of work. So they would have never gone there, So if they go back to their roots, they go back to their home, after a certain point of time, they will come in. Unless and until, once again, government provides. The best example is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So unless and until a lot of money is getting pumped in there, and then people are ensured, I would say at this point of time, not only 100 days. Why 100 days? In a year, try to ensure at least 200 days of work for all these people. Otherwise, these people will also be in trouble, and some of them get twice in the course of next 1 year. So that is the hard reality that we are looking at. And then another problem is that many people are not understanding that once they go back to they will not immediately come back to the what I can call the industrial India, because the kind of treatment they have been given during the last 2.5 3 months, I don't think most of them are going to come back in the next 6 to 8 months at least, and a full year or maybe even more than that. That might be a huge problem, and many huge problem for the industry. That at least some people are talking about. But I can also see huge problem in agriculture sector, because, for example, what I am trying to say that a lot of harvesting, a lot of crop, sowing, doing the other process of putting the crop and harvesting the entire agricultural process in West Bengal, for example. There are most of the places which I know, all these activities are done to migrant workers only, mainly from Jharkhand and some from Bihar, depending upon the border and which district is covered, covering border with which other state or something like that. So that is how the economy works. Because people go from one place to another and then they earn some money in the process, the activity is going on. So I am very worried. I am very worried not only for industry but also for agricultural production in the entire Rabi crop. I am a bit tense. There is no doubt about it. So that's how I look at it, because being in this unprecedented trouble, which we forget about seeing, which we cannot even imagine. And definitely, I can. I'm not predicting, of course, but definitely there is a huge probability of a food inflation in case the agricultural supply chain gets disrupted like that because of migrant work. That can also, one cannot rule out that question. So broadly, that is what I have to say in this. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Uh, so, sir, I think those were really good insights, and I would clearly agree with you on most of them, as the people who are going to go back and all. The second part of your question was really interesting because the amount,
It's
but still,
the,
like, I
it's
believe
the
that,
most important part. I think it's the most important question. That the second part of the question, what you asked, is the most important challenge that we face right now, economic challenge.
yes, sir. And like not just people like me, or even people like from the upper middle class of the society. I think they are not the only ones to think about what major challenges they are going to face. I think it is them who themselves after this pandemic who have to make a major decision to go back to their places back in the Gulf or any other places. There are so many countries out there. What I also see over there is that there are so many countries who would be calling migrant workers back, because if I see in the Gulf, they have cut down oil production since many months. I think it was last in the OPEC committee meeting happened in March, I think, and after that they cut down the oil production. So after this, I think they would boost up their oil production rates to a very high level, and for that they'll be calling migrant laborers from India as well to a very high limit. So I think the migrant laborers have to take a
No,
very difficult
oil
call.
is a different story altogether, because before COVID-19 came, there were other problems which was happening, because mainly it was a tussle between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia
Yes, yes.
as the kingpin of OPEC, they were trying to get into an understanding with non-OPEC countries, so that there is a production cut down. There is a production cut down, and then they can revive the prices, because many of these companies, oil companies, were, at least they claim that they are bleeding, because they are not getting, and which is quite possible also, because oil prices are hovering at a very lower level for quite some time, almost so many years now. So then it briefly it went up, but then once again it fell down. That is why they tried to, before the pandemic, people even thought about the pandemic. Then Russia, in fact, did not agree on that. Russia said, Russia, in fact, I don't know, because I'm no very big expert on that. But on the outset, it looked like that Russia played a gamble to not to cut down production, and thereby uh, target the American oil production, basically the shale oil producers, so that they, because shale oil production is something which is a little bit sensitive, relatively more sensitive, relatively more sensitive to the prices. So if the prices remain at a lower level, shale production would have got very badly. But in any case, shale production got very badly hit in the last 1.5 years. So Russia wanted to hit it more. So it was a gamble, and it actually didn't work the way Russia would have liked to. Because of that, there is a um, there was this basically it is in typical economics textbook terms. Once again, it is a price war on the lower side. It is a kind of everybody tried to cut down the price, and then let whoever is not coping with it then go out of market or something. But that is history now. Now they have came into some understanding. But here, in fact, one more the most this also I somehow came to know, because in any oil well you can't cut down your production to zero. You can't stop, because some amount of oil naturally will come from the from below the earth to the surface. So of course the all wherever one can store oil, everything is full almost. That is the general idea in the industry, that everything is full. All storage capacities are full, and if it goes on, if there are spikes in some other oil production, and forget about even all oil production, some of the major countries like China, India, some of the major European countries hate, and America, you can see what is happening. It's a havoc going on. So then, if this goes on for another month or so, all storage capacities will be over also in another one and a half months. So that was the idea. So the point is that once the pandemic gets over, oil production going up, I can't see it happening like that, because there will be a lot of problems, because all economies will be in ruin. Yes, the way there is there was no, let's say, maybe 15, 20 days back, there was no oil demand. Some amount of revival will happen, but the moot question, or the most important question here is that will it go back to the pre-pandemic level? Let's say, somewhere, let's say festive season. To touch the October-November demand, will it touch October-November demand? But to touch the October-November demand, your general aggregate demand, I am talking in a very Keynesian sense, the Keynesian aggregate demand, not in other sense. In a macroeconomic, Keynesian aggregate demand has to go up to that level, to that festive season, let's say 2019 October-November level. But I believe that, this is also I am quoting from CRISIL, and then they feel that there is a almost 3% component kind of a GDP loss, which actually means, the way they explain that, which actually means that in 3 years we are not going to go back to the pre-pandemic level. That is the kind of situation we are talking. So if India, and that you must have seen IMF projections. I personally believe that IMF projections somewhere else I really don't know. China also I don't know. I don't know what they are talking about. The America and most of the Europe. Things there they might be correct, but in case of India, having a positive growth rate is, for my idea, it is simply out of this. So if that is the kind of situation we are in, then of course I cannot expect any other country, including the Gulf countries, to increase their production. Forget about increasing production. To go back to the origin, the production. Let's say even for the Gulf countries, I will give the same example. That just to reach that what they were producing during the that October, November, December quarter in 2009. I don't think it is going to go back there in couple of years. No, not at all. Forget about increasing production. Even achieving that level, if everything goes well, the way we put it, that all other things remaining constant. That's it is very best assumption. So difficult because I don't want to. I don't want you to be, less optimistic about the future. But then that is what the reality
Yeah.
is.
Okay, sir. So, with that, I'll conclude today's session, sir. Thank you so much for joining in, and it was great interacting with you. And for sure, I'll let you know about this, and we'll keep in touch for future any
Yeah,
more
yeah, of
purposes.
course. It's been a pleasure, and then that it's very difficult because personally I find it very difficult to interact over this digital move. But in any case, and then there was so much of problem in the beginning, but somehow we managed to talk.